Hey, everybody, and welcome to part three of our discussion in our series on losing animals and animals transition. In case you missed the first two, this was inspired by my recent loss of my soul sister and my beautiful little girl, my 15-year-old cocker, who just recently passed a few months ago. And this topic that we're going to talk about today really is near and dear to my heart. Denise and I have been talking, and Denise was I still have to say thank you for connecting to my little girl shortly after she passed. And some of the things that we'll talk about tonight has kind of was brought from that conversation. So tonight, what we're going to talk about are the 5 things your pet wishes you knew at the end of its life. And I wanted to just kind of put something out there for those of you who are dealing with animals that have lost, that you've lost. A lot of the things we'll talk about it may be easy to forget during the time, but just the more you hear about it, the more you think about it, that's why they want us to know about this and to kind of keep hearing it. So what do you think, Denise? You want to kick us off with number one?
Sure. The very first thing that I think comes up in almost every reading when an animal is getting ready to transition is that there is no exact one moment when an animal is ready. It's not like they're not ready and then all of a sudden it shifts. It's very much a window of time when animals are prepared to cross over. And often they're ready before their people are, and they're just waiting for the person to be ready because they know how hard it is on us.
Yeah, exactly. They want to make sure we're ready too. Because and that it helps their passing too to kind of know that we'll be okay. And for those of you who may have lost animals on a tragic accident or something like that, just know that the other thing is it's said so often, but it's so true. Everything happens for a reason. And to know that there is a plan for when they cross over, and then their time. So like Denise said, it may be a tragic event that may have happened on an X time, or it may be a time that you're debating, well, is it time to put to put our loved one down or not? The time is never going to be exactly perfect, but it will be right.
That's right. And most of well, all of the things that we're talking about today have come up through conversations with animals. I want to mention that that's how I know these things. And
Exactly.
I've even talked to a kitten who passed away who said, I wasn't meant to be in this world for a long time. I wanted to come and check it out and I wasn't in the right body. So I'm going to be done soon. And
Exactly.
and so we may not understand it, but the pets often have a reason for their timing. It can also be related to their people. I find that animals transition often when there is a big life event happening for their person. And it's kind of a reflection of the end of a chapter.
Exactly. That's very similar to Sophie. I heard from someone who, and actually even from her herself, is that, now I can help you more from the other side rather than I could from this side. So that kind of brings us to number two about one of the most common things I know I've gone through myself is the guilt and anger. And I think that's a big thing to know that our animals do not carry resentment when they cross over. They don't carry frustrations or anger or pointing fingers at you. You made the wrong decision. Nothing like that. They do not carry that with you, and they hate to. I won't say they hate to see that, but they don't want to see you dealing with that either.
It is somewhat painful for them, and it's funny
Yeah.
that they're on the other side and they're feeling this amazing peace and calm, and they've just gone through this transition, but they still then look back and feel bad that their family is mourning. And I have never spoken to an animal on the other side who was angry or upset. Never. They
Yeah.
do not hold those emotions, and so they don't want you to feel that way either. And
Right.
generally, well, there's always guilt. There's guilt if you had to help the animal pass. Sometimes people feel like they waited too long, or if the animal goes on their own, sometimes people feel like they should have done something more. So there is no good way for an animal to pass. And so I hope that you can give yourself some grace
Mhm.
and not take on all of that pressure, because there just is no good way.
There isn't. And I mean, it is a part of the grieving process. So our animals aren't going to be mad at us or saying, well, why are you feeling guilty? They also understand, and we as humans need to go through it. But just from what we've, like Denise mentioned, what we've heard these things from animals, both our own and others, is that they want to bring you to that peace and that grace, and also to remember the good times and to remember with love, because brings us to our next one. They know we love them. So that's one thing that a lot of us keep going back in our mind is, did they know? Did they know how special they were? Denise, how many times have you been asked that in a
So
reading?
many times, and the animal always knows, and the animal always loves them as well. I sometimes I forget, and I have to remind myself that I haven't told them that yet, because every person needs to hear that their animal loves them. Sometimes I feel like it's kind of assumed. I'm like, of course they love you so much, but they really do know. They feel it. They feel love. They totally understand.
And especially not, depending on the circumstances, we've talked about this before. Animals choose, and we choose when we bring in our partners and our animals. And so you may not have had the best situation. You may have been worried about stress or a new baby or, different things, and being like, oh my God, I didn't give, my loved one the time that they needed. They still knew they were loved because they knew the whole situation. And please, and we just encourage you, I've heard from many animals, and just reassure people that they know what's going on. So again, kind of let go of that guilt again. Let go of
Yes.
that guilt no matter what
And
was going on.
I want to remind people that your animal hears you when you tell them that they love you.
Yes.
So that's another thing, that they are always with you. Even
Yes.
after they pass, you can still have a relationship with them. It's not the same because they're not in their physical body, but when you talk to them, they hear you and they understand. And so people always ask me to tell their pets how much they love them. And you don't need an animal communicator for that. Your animal hears you. So keep doing that. Keep talking to them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They're with us. I mean, as humans, we need, the necklaces or, the paw prints or the necklaces with fur. But you don't need that because they're with us. They're there with you in spirit, all the time. So that's a great reminder, and that they will hear you. If you do still carry some guilt, it might help your healing process to talk with the animal and just say, I'm sorry for X, or, things like that. You can go back to one of our earlier videos where we talked about communicating with your animal, because guess what? They don't have to be here physically because they're always with us. So great point. And kind of brings us to our last point is they may come back to us physically too. Just because they're no longer with us right now, don't rule it out that they may come back to you in a later time.
And that was something that I didn't know was possible. I didn't know about reincarnation until I talked to a pet who told me they were going to come back. And didn't you have that experience, Mary Beth?
Well, again, going back to Sophie, personally, she was my cat growing up. I grew up with a cat pretty much for about the first 18 years. Well, not the first 18 years, pretty much when I was in kindergarten until when I went off to college. But she was the same cat. She just came back to me. So I've had that personally, and then also talked with other people who, their animals have mentioned that they've come back.
Can you share a little
So
bit about how you knew it was her?
well, first of all, she was a dog, but not always a dog. She had a lot of kind of cat tendencies. And I was very blessed in that my Sophie, we shared many lifetimes together. So it kind of came from that being quiet, like we talked about in the first video, and that she basically just told me. So there was a couple of signs and a couple of things that kind of helped me. And then I know we talked about that, and the human brain in me was like, all right, Denise, just validate this for me. And you
Yes,
did.
and that's
Yeah.
something that people ask me often in readings as well is, was this the same soul as another animal that I had? But the other thing that I see often is after an animal passes, they will help choose the next pet for you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if it's not them and they're not coming back, they will help send you the right pet. And if that is the case, you can't miss it. I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing because people get stressed out and think, oh, how do I know? How can I be sure it's the right one? And the animal will take care of that part. They will make sure that you find each other.
Exactly. And the other thing is, I know a lot of people sometimes deal with guilt of, am I dishonoring the memory of, my loved one by getting another one too soon? Or am I dishonoring the memory by, getting another one to fill the space? And just know that it will work out. And your animal that has passed is helping the next one come in. Both, how they come into your life. And I also have experienced readings with people where the other animals kind of showing them the ropes, so to speak, kind of, showing them what's going on. So kind of preparing the animal.
Yes, I've had people say, oh, my dog does the exact same thing that my other dog used to do. And I'm like, that's because he's there showing the dog, he's telling them what to do.
Exactly, exactly. So I hope these help you. Again, this is something that's very dear to both of our hearts, is that helping people through grief and also honoring the animals that have passed. So we wanted to take a moment and just kind of be their voice and share some things to help you, kind of process their grief and, to be their voice tonight. So if you'd like it, please subscribe. We have one more part of this series coming up. And just remember to hit like and subscribe.
Yeah, and comment below if there's any other topics that you'd like to hear about. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.